If you haven't subscribed to WWE Express yet, hit that button right now because what Randy Orton just revealed about Cody Rhodes' attack on Pat McAfee is going to make you see the entire WWE landscape completely differently. This is the moment where alliances shatter, where hidden motivations are exposed, and where the American Nightmare's true nature finally comes into the light. Randy Orton breaking silence about Cody Rhodes is significant for one fundamental reason: Randy doesn't speak unless he has something important to say. The Viper is calculated, measured, strategic. He's not someone who gets involved in drama unless there's a personal stake, unless there's something that directly impacts his own narrative trajectory. So when Randy decides to publicly address what Cody Rhodes did to Pat McAfee, we're not hearing idle gossip. We're hearing a wrestler who feels compelled to take a stand, to defend someone, or to expose something that the wrestling world desperately needs to understand. Let's rewind to the moment that led to this breaking point. Cody Rhodes has positioned himself as the conquering hero, the man who defeats obstacles, the warrior destined for championship glory. But beneath that polished exterior, beneath that heroic narrative, there's apparently a willingness to cross lines that most wrestlers maintain. Attacking Pat McAfee backstage isn't just a physical assault. It's a statement. It's a declaration that Cody Rhodes is willing to target anyone, hurt anyone, eliminate anyone who stands in the way of his ambitions or challenges his perspective. The fact that Cody would attack Pat McAfee specifically tells us something critical about his psychology. Pat isn't a wrestler. Pat isn't a physical threat in the traditional sense. Pat is a voice, a perspective, a commentator whose observations shape how the audience perceives Cody's character development. By attacking Pat, Cody essentially admits that he's afraid of Pat's commentary. He's afraid of what Pat might say. He's afraid that Pat's analytical perspective might undermine the heroic narrative that Cody has been constructing so carefully. Now here's where Randy Orton's involvement becomes absolutely fascinating. What does Randy care about Pat McAfee's well-being? What possible connection exists between the Viper and the former football player turned broadcaster? The answer lies in the deeper politics of WWE, the unspoken alliances, the mutual respect between certain wrestlers who understand the business on a fundamental level. Randy has probably crossed paths with Pat multiple times. Randy probably respects Pat's commentary enough to recognize that attacking him is an act of desperation, an act of someone trying to control the narrative rather than trusting in the quality of their own work. When Randy breaks silence, he's essentially saying that Cody Rhodes' actions crossed a line that shouldn't be crossed. And that's a massive statement coming from Randy Orton, a wrestler who has himself done questionable things throughout his career. Randy understands character development. Randy understands that sometimes you need to get heat, you need to be edgy, you need to do things that make audiences uncomfortable. But there's a difference between doing controversial things that serve a storyline and attacking someone outside the wrestling ring out of desperation. What Randy is revealing is that Cody Rhodes acted out of weakness, not strength. A truly confident champion doesn't need to silence commentators. A truly powerful wrestler doesn't need to attack people backstage. The fact that Cody felt compelled to do this suggests that something isn't working with his current narrative direction, that something about his positioning feels unstable enough that he needs to actively suppress dissenting voices. Consider what this revelation does to Cody's character trajectory. He's been positioned as the guy fighting against the odds, overcoming obstacles, proving that he belongs at the top of WWE. But now we know that he's also someone willing to cross ethical and professional boundaries to maintain his position. Now we know that beneath the heroic exterior there's a willingness to be vicious, to be underhanded, to be manipulative. That's not a minor character flaw. That's a fundamental shift in how the audience understands his character. The psychology behind Randy choosing this moment to speak is equally interesting. Why now? What changed? Did Randy finally reach his breaking point? Did something happen that made him feel obligated to defend Pat? Or is Randy making a calculated move to position himself as the moral authority in a landscape where Cody Rhodes is increasingly revealed as ethically compromised? Randy's reputation has been through evolution throughout his career, from the disrespectful young superstar to the veteran's veteran who has earned the right to speak his mind. By positioning himself against Cody's actions, Randy is essentially saying, I've done questionable things, but even I have lines I won't cross. This also creates immediate implications for any potential physical confrontation between Randy and Cody. If these two end up facing each other, the audience now knows that there's personal animosity, that there's a legitimate grievance behind the match. It's not just two wrestlers competing for supremacy. It's Randy Orton holding Cody Rhodes accountable for crossing a line. That's the kind of underlying motivation that elevates a match from entertaining to genuinely meaningful. The attack on Pat McAfee also reframes our understanding of Cody's relationships with other people in WWE. Who else has Cody treated this way behind closed doors? Who else has Cody intimidated or threatened? Has this been a pattern of behavior that's only now being exposed, or is this an isolated incident that represents a breaking point for Cody's character? Randy's willingness to speak publicly suggests that this is significant enough that it needed to be addressed, that silence would have been complicit. Think about what this does to the broadcast presentation going forward. Pat McAfee returning to commentary now carries additional weight. Every observation he makes, every perspective he offers, is now colored by the knowledge that Cody Rhodes attacked him, that Cody feared his voice enough to attempt silencing it. Pat's commentary becomes an act of defiance. It becomes an assertion of his right to speak, his refusal to be intimidated, his determination to continue doing his job despite what happened. And that's a powerful narrative layer. Randy's statement also serves as a public warning to other wrestlers who might be tempted to follow Cody's example. If you attack people outside the ring, if you target commentators and broadcast personnel, if you try to silence voices that challenge your narrative, Randy Orton will call you out. And that matters because Randy carries credibility. He's not some moralist. He's not someone who's never done controversial things. He's someone who's evolved through his career to understand the difference between entertaining controversy and actual unethical behavior. The reveal also raises questions about leadership and example setting in WWE. Cody Rhodes has been positioned as someone the younger wrestlers should look up to, someone who embodies excellence and determination. But if he's willing to attack people backstage, if he's willing to cross that line, what message does that send? Does it encourage other wrestlers to think that violence against non-wrestlers is acceptable? Does it undermine the professional standards that wrestling is trying to maintain? Randy speaking out is essentially a corrective statement, a reassertion of the professional boundaries that should exist. What's particularly brilliant about this storyline moment is how it complicates Cody's narrative without completely destroying it. Cody isn't suddenly a bad guy who we root against. Cody is a complex character with understandable motivations who made a choice that wasn't defensible. That kind of complexity is far more interesting than simple good versus evil storytelling. It allows the audience to maintain investment in Cody's character while also understanding that he made a mistake that has consequences. Randy's involvement also creates a potential secondary storyline that branches off from the immediate fallout. Does Cody respond to Randy's accusations? Does Cody defend his actions or double down on them? Does Cody's team push back against Randy's characterization? Or does Cody try to minimize the situation and move forward? The way Cody responds to Randy's breaking silence will tell us everything about whether he's genuinely understood he crossed a line or whether he's going to maintain that his actions were justified. The broader implication here is that WWE is showing us that actions have consequences, that attacking people outside the wrestling ring is different from the scripted violence that happens inside it, that there are professional and ethical standards that even the biggest stars need to maintain. It's a narrative choice that respects the intelligence of the audience while also establishing that the wrestling world has rules and that people who break those rules will be held accountable. As we look forward, this moment becomes the pivotal point where Cody Rhodes' character either evolves into something more complex and darker, or where he faces real pressure to rehabilitate his image and demonstrate that the attack on Pat was aberrant behavior rather than reflective of who he actually is. Either direction creates compelling storytelling possibilities. This is the kind of moment that reminds us why professional wrestling is so fascinating as a narrative medium. It's not just about the physical confrontations. It's about the psychology, the motivations, the consequences, the way actions ripple outward and affect multiple storylines simultaneously. And it's all built on the foundation of characters we've invested in, relationships we've watched develop, and stakes that actually matter to us emotionally. Don't miss the next chapters of this story as it unfolds. Subscribe to WWE Express right now because we're diving deep into every implication of Randy Orton's breaking silence, every layer of Cody Rhodes' character development, and every consequence that flows from the attack on Pat McAfee. We break down the psychology, the storytelling, the character arcs that make WWE's greatest narratives so compelling. Hit that subscribe button so you're part of every revelation, every analysis, every moment where professional wrestling transcends entertainment and becomes genuine art. Thank you for joining us here on WWE Express, where we celebrate the storytelling mastery of professional wrestling.